I don't know if you watching, but I'm watching. And this is some of the biggest tricking the world has ever seen. Where my camera at? Let me look at you right there. This is some of the biggest tricking the world has ever seen, man. Y'all stay tuned, man. On agreeing to the resolution. So I was watching this a little bit earlier, right? And it seemed like they got up and they made the appeal. Is it $3 trillion? They started going through the line items and saying, look, these are some of the things that we have a problem with. It seems like the Republicans would have led that initiative a little bit stronger. But right now they got 122 nays. We're going to capture this moment. Salute pays to be first. 153 Democratic says yay with two nays. Now, in getting ready for those closing arguments, one of the Democratic folks got up and said some very powerful stuff. He was standing up there saying there would be more Republicans that say yes. He was trying to paint a picture of it being bipartisan. And then once the vote started happening, though, you got more Democrats at this point who have said nay than you have Republicans who have actually said yay. So I don't know if that worked out in his favor, but this is $3 trillion more on top of everything that has already been cut. There was a lot of different things inside of it that really spoke to me as a citizen, as a father, as a veteran. And then there was a lot that was not said. And so there's, I think they said 1,800 pages or something. Jesus. Who is going to be able to read 1,800 pages? I do not know. But big tricking over here. And so that's what's going on right now. I don't know if you see it. I don't know when you were scrolling down if this is the type of information that pops up on your screen, but I saw this and I said I would capture some of this in real time. But while I'm doing that, I might as well give you some content and I'll keep you updated, man. So what's been going on in my Corona Noya state? B1 Brother Moses, I'm out here still in Phoenix, Arizona, checking in with the networking folks. So thanks for joining me here. On this live stream, there's a lot that could be discussed. But what's really most important to me right now is still understanding the spaces where we will operate during recovery. Right now, we're not even at the recovery stage. And so during recovery still seems to be a bit presumptive. But I say that anyway. The space where we will operate during recovery. And there's some leadership there that is actually determining what that looks like. So on agreeing to the resolution, this being one of them, the political processes and all of those tools and resources that are available to them, including the Federal Reserve. That same Federal Reserve being a predominant shareholder in our collective stake. And at this point, their investment is through most of our systems. So most of the system, we already know banking is a predominant force, but what happens without that partnership, I just don't know. At this point, though, we can leverage that partnership or we can let it fall by the wayside. At this point, though, they are just coronanoid enough to be able to continually accept the terms of extended zero interest or, close to 0% interest financing options for our country. And right now they're at one of those impasses where they just got to press the button again and they can spit that money right back out and get it into our economy. I think the number is more like 23 trillion. And right now we've already exhausted more than 4.8 trillion. And so they're asking for another 3. And this is where we're at. Democrats say 164 yay, 3 nay. Republican 133 nay. Where do you stand on the issue? As you continue to examine your political identity, your politic, your identity politic, what is it that you think is important right now? Is it right now cutting the check the number one pressing concern? The economy's stupid. And if not, where would you rank it amongst priorities as a governmental response? Remember, this is not just for your own personal, what would you do, but for the collective interests. For that, we know that the federal treasury and the Federal Reserve have had this conversation. And so for them, having held that conversation and evaluated those numbers, I think those are the experts to make the decision when it comes to monetary response and the space that we're going to have to operate in during recovery. In this bill, though, I did hear something about another direct transfer. So that's in my best interest, which is why I was listening. I thought I would deliver that. Again, it's not a rumor. Actually, watching these channels did bring that out, another direct transfer. I know they're still working out some of the issues with the people who didn't get the immediate transfer on the first wave, but we are at the middle of the month and we are out of money and our states are out of money. They're into reserves, but they are not into they're not creating a surplus. And so paramount that they have this conversation early. And I think I also heard inside of this that they were looking at the fiscal budget all the way through September 3rd. Now that one's going to be a hard one to live to. It's going to be hard because it's still unpredictable as you have a workforce reopening with the capabilities of testing. I remember on the way out, before we became work at home, they at least had the thermometer thing that they would scan your forehead with. Now, when it first started, it was ridiculous. They would scan it, but they didn't know about masks or they didn't have PPE distributed before they needed to start scanning foreheads. And so the scanning of a forehead thing was already invalid to me. Why? Because science said that people could be asymptomatic, right? And so they didn't have to have a fever to still be able to transmit. And they knew that human-to-human transmission was a thing all the way back in January, like the 29th. I digress. We know that that issue is still pressing on the heartstrings of the sympathetic. And so it's important for me to kind of stay in the know and who's saying what and why are they saying what, because these are the people who are coming up on another election. And when they start talking the likelihood or the likability or the electability of some of these same people, it's something that I like to have reserved in the back of my mind. So my judgments are actually made on data. And in this global pandemic, this response is an evaluating criteria on whether or not I like that person enough to put a bubble or my check next to their name. Can't vote for everybody. And in fact, I can only vote on a limited few. And when I do make those votes, I'm selective on even who I would vote for, even in that limited few, just like the agenda items that finally make it to us. Which brings me to my first point, DJ Moss. Thanks for joining the chat. My first point is I was doing some research, looking at Pew Research to see if there were any studies that even asked niggas how they felt about this response. Do they feel it was effective? Do they feel it was efficient? Do they feel it was well coordinated from the leadership? I know that I can go to other research locations other than Pew Research, but that seems to be the one that gets the most media coverage whenever there's a new Pew Research study that was put out. I mean, you know, the phone surveys, nothing. 0% of African Americans were even asked what they feel like. And so because of that, then I am by force anecdotal when I have to tell you what my position is. There was just simply no data. It was undocumented. And so because of that, what is my opinion on the political response? I think that they used as a hell of a deflection. They used that political response to make the accountability about not the state, but the household. They used it as a bully pulpit to create awareness, but they did not own it. All right, quick update here. It looks like 177 yays. There was one more nay from the Democratic side. Those roles will be available, and that is something that I hold against them, especially when you find out that they're a part of the Congressional Black Caucus or somewhere where your family resides. It's personalized. Still 144 Republicans have voted nay. That was to be expected. There was a lot of things about undocumented workers that they did not want to be included, as well as migrant workers and visas and all, that same America First perspective that I think should have waited until they went to the Senate. But because they have a voice here, it was their duty to actually say, strike that down and revisit how we allocate these funds. I don't think that they should hold up the entire bill because they disagree off of those premises, but I do think that it was important for them to be vocal on what their position was, as they always are. Now, those 3 nay-saying Democrats, those votes will be under question from B1 Brother Moses. We'll find out. Maybe it's somebody important, somebody that's in a space that really matters, and maybe they aren't. But I would say that if they are in a space, and they're supposed to be the ones with the liberal ideology, they're supposed to be saying the government should be doing more. They're supposed to be the ones saying the government is responsible for the people. They're supposed to be pushing collaborations, alliances, partnerships. They're supposed to be doing those things that show a connected us, big U, big S. And that partnership between the state and the community and the household is thus strong. But because they are supposed to be liberal, sometimes some of them move to the more conservative side of even that Democratic line, and they may be just more conservative than other Democrats. And they don't uphold, that majority of values for doing more and saying more and involving more. And for that reason, they'll be under scrutiny. I also notice here from the independent side, independents do have a tendency to side more conservative, almost to the point of Republican. Independents being a newer addition or adoption of the party, now being translated as an ideology, one that says, I don't vote along Democratic or Republican lines, I vote my conscience. But that transfer of meaning is not the exact interpretation of the political party. All right. And so the Democratic yays are coming in a little bit faster. That's another thing. The people who are on that, they already know what their decision is. You see, there's 39-39, 38-40. They're right there on the non-votes of the people who haven't cast their ballot yet. It's about even. But what you normally see is those folks who already know they're going to say yes, they're saying yay. That's the Democrats. Those folks who are going to say no, that's what we refer to as that bipartisan or that non-bipartisanship. That is partisanship at its finest. And that's the thing where it makes you even question whether or not this global pandemic is serious or not in the eyes of these people who are watching lives being lost to it. The deflectionary comment from the liberal ideology is that there are some disparities that existed in healthcare even prior to this global pandemic that we can use this time to begin to try to address. Now, I applaud them for that, but then more than 20 times inside of this bill, as so pointed out, they also mention the word diversity. And so while they can say there are some healthcare disparities, where was the actual allocation of funding inside of this 1,800-page book? I'll give you an idea. One of the spaces was in the cannabis. They said that was also mentioned around 48 times. I forget who I was watching who was giving me the breakdown, but I'll say they, and it's referring to a media who has actually read it. That 1,800 pages I will get into if needed. But right now, what's most important are the yays and the nays and the storyline behind it. It's a pivotal moment. It needs to be documented in history. The politics are just like the race. People want to avoid those type of conversations. I don't. We could break these things down to the states that are the most impacted and why their people should be saying yes, as well as those people who are not in those impacted states and why the states' rights then say, I don't want to be beholden to a debt to the Federal Reserve that my state was not going to benefit from. So there's reasons economically that they don't want to be disadvantaged. Case in point, you have California, which is huge, Democrat. All of those people are likely to say yes, no matter where they're from. New York is another one. But then Texas, on the other hand, feels like they have not had that direct impact due to the coronavirus. So why should they be responsible for Federal Reserve notes or paying that back? Now they don't have, here's what they also get you with is the double talk. because the free rider program is still in existence. They would still be able to benefit. Their banks would still be able to benefit. The national banking and even the international banks and even the multinational enterprises or organizations, firms and things, all of that they could still benefit from as the state of Texas. And they can get all the benefits in the world from the products and surplus that's created as we continue to ramp up our PPE distribution and production capabilities. So much more when it comes to the technology and being able to deploy it to our advantage strategically. So many resources that are made available as our small businesses are empowered, and then those individual protected spaces that have to be protected without a shadow of a doubt, like those firemen, police officers, teachers, and number one right now that just rose to the list, it wasn't always so, but healthcare workers. It's typically the firemen, they always get theirs. And here's another one. While the Republicans are voting nay, the firemen would still fall under that socialist perspective. They'd be the first ones to talk about supporting the firemen, supporting the police. Those are the same things that are also protected by unions, which is a democratic principle on the other side. So it keeps tugging at the heartstrings of people who are still learning to understand what democracy looks like in reality beyond the talking points. See, I say that again so it don't go over people's heads. The Republicans typically were the ones who fought against communism, or they'll tell you why China is bad. They'd be the ones who tried to fight against Russia there in the 60s space race and tell you why Soviet and socialism does not work. They're the ones who would arrest the Black Panther Party in spaces like Oakland and tell you socialism is a failed experiment and capitalism. They'd be the one to shoot it down, while at the same time telling you they support the firemen, they support the police, they support the military, of course, and they support teachers, or so they would claim, which are mostly operated by unions. Unions being a protected worker space, often associated with the Democrats protecting unions. So while at one hand, tongue in cheek, they'll tell you they're against socialism and all of that, they pick and choose. And in this time, I think they should pick and choose the greater good. And in that perspective, the greater good is to actually understand the 23 trillion that you need versus these 3 trillion at a time and 5 trillion at a time that you're asking for. Slowballing it, rolling the ball super slow, but it's a hyperinflationary time right now that we live in that they cannot avoid. Economic systems comparatively, when you say communism versus capitalism, the Chinese were actually kicking our ass and still are, just like they are in that space race and their capability to knock big ass satellites out of the sky from the ground. And so while he came into an administration, or this administration came in focused on a space race or a space force, they've been distracted. They can't get to no space force if they can't keep the people fed. This very notion that somebody can be conservative still strikes at my core. Conserve what? Exactly. There is a social, political, and economic, and in the undercurrents of our racism that always tend to surface every 4 years, if you believe Candace Owens, that I would say make up a 4-part harmony in what we are even supposed to be doing here. There is this lens of politics and how it interplays. Do you want bigger government? Do you want smaller government, more restricted? Do you want regulation? Or are you saying leave business as it might be? Are you looking to conserve big business, or are you finally on that boat that says small business, sole proprietors, LLCs, the individual mom and pop should have a fighting chance to survive a global pandemic? Or big business like big pharmaceutical companies? The one that I was deferring, but is that cannabis business, and I do believe in that. And they were saying inside of this bill an appropriation specifically for minority-owned cannabis dispensaries It was a Fox News thing that I was watching, and he pointed it out like it was a bad thing. What we need is more dispensaries in the hood. I ought to play that shit right now. Let me do that shit right now. Hold on, player. We got action. Let's at least bring in one opposing argument. I could drop the link in the chat if anybody down there would like to join in this conversation. Tell me what you think, where you at. But that dude said something, and I am just now catching it. And it was the way that he said it too. He was trying to say it as if, oh yeah, he even closed out by saying something crazy. The brother said, not even a brother, it was a damn Brad. I don't even know his damn name, but one of those Fox people. What did the dude say? He said, take a hit of the dab. And it was something like, take a hit of the dab and call me in the morning or something like that. Something real disrespectful. Damn, I can't even find it. That shit popped up earlier on my phone. Let me see if I got that shit here. I damn near want to cook him now and just go straight to the ad hominem. And while I'm thinking about it, we finally got one yay to show the bipartisanship that the African American who was in one of those closing arguments was referring to. He did say that there would be some bipartisanship there. I think we need more than one to validate his claim. If we don't get at least 2 Republicans to say yay, that is a disgrace. The partisanship is something that they continue to use to kick the bucket down the line. The more appropriate course would be to get it to the Senate, but it has to originate in the House. Of course, we expect the Democrats to be the ones to say yay. Of course, we expect the Republicans to be the ones to say nay. But this is a pandemic. I do actually believe that it is occurring and that the spread of the novel coronavirus is real. I don't think that that shit is made up at all. And in fact, I'm on the opposite end of that. I'm the one who actually comes to give presentations around coronanoia. My paranoia says that this was biological warfare. And in fact, not only was it biological warfare, we are losing that battle. And now while other people can say that there are fudgeted numbers, and I'm even one who can look and say, look, these numbers don't seem to be adding up. I can at least show the timestamps of those numbers as they were presented over time. And those timestamps over time still seem to confirm the same rhetoric that there have been other countries that have responded a little bit more, or their containment strategy seems to work if all we can go by is the numbers that they told us to use, which is Johns Hopkins as well as the CDC data. And so if they told us to use that data and I use that data and I have chronological timeline to show you those same numbers in those same countries and show you how America rose from like 6th to being number 1 and then blew everybody out of the water when it came to positive confirmed cases, it wasn't just because they had the capability increased to confirm those cases, but that there was actually more people being confirmed. We hear on the other end that they're saying, well, there are some false negatives, and that's not what our concern is. Our concern is if it is an actual positive, then it is still being spread. The containment strategy failed, and we are still not a hold of it. At the time that the 14 days to slow the spread was announced, that was like March 16th. We were only looking at numbers of increasing about 4,000, maybe 5,000 a day. Now we're in the tens of thousands, even right here in America, confirmed positive. And that's supposed to be the new norm. Is this the flat curve? Nah, I don't think we've actually come even close to hitting what we were supposed to hit. Now, I understand there is some paranoia that comes with that too, which is why you have to have the conversation and ask the question straight up and down. Are you for bigger government or are you for smaller government? Bro, Rob, peace and salute, man. Thanks for joining the chat. Hey, man, I don't need to have this conversation by myself, do I, man? I know my brothers is, when you do have the bandwidth, you're more than willing. I mean, what am I trying to say here? I could show you better than I can say it. There it is. So let me back up, because there's about 15 people in the Democratic side yet, 11 in the Republican side, 26 total votes yet to be cast. Let me see if I got time to actually throw in an opinion piece right here on top of this information. So, more urgent, YouTube politics impacted growth of the B1 Network 24-hour debate channel. That's something that I would hope to get back to. Y'all be sure to hit that like button while you're there. And thanks for joining. Space race is something that's important, but even more important to me right now than that space race, as much as I love that concept and the jobs that it would create and the leveraging of all of that technology to get there. I think the type of jobs it creates and the type of society it creates with that real goal, I think that's phenomenal. Just as strongly, I also believe that the Small Business Association is going to be an important part in our recovery and in our own individual spaces. And so I do like to share this information here. Getting coronavirus tax relief is one of those major ones. Getting your refund status for those people who still may be impacted and have not received their first, while we are now talking about $3 trillion more. Remember, I'm the one who said cut the check, so I don't play with these people. Coronavirus small business guidance and loan resources are available there. And if you want to learn more, I'll give you a couple of screenshots there. The Plan Your Business, Launch Your Business, Manage Your Business, or Grow Your Business are great places to start. So there's the lending partner, there's the actual loan, and that's for you. Now, there's a lot of things that you can look at, but $500 is $500. If you only get the minimum, you still got $500. Now, these loans guaranteed by the SBA do range, and they will need some information from you. And so we have some resources also available if you need even that support, that somebody to talk to who can help walk you through step. Now I need you to do this, and now I need you to do that. Now, those services are available, but essentially it's finding a lender, matching you with the right loan for your business. All right. So there are some eligibility requirements. Again, if you have any concerns about meeting the eligibility and any of that, feel free to connect. Now, from here, you see that there are some other options: loans, investment capital, disaster assistance is what I'm referring to, surety bonds. And in my situation, or personally, it was grants. Trying to find some government grants. Again, I'm incorporating social, political, and economic all in one conversation. And I tell you that it's about race because I don't play no motherfucking games. On the last one, you see grants. And then from there, let me get into that real bullshit and talk about Candace Owens. See, she defended her position on where Black America ranks white supremacy and white nationalism. And then there are some other conservatives. Do I kill them or do I kill them? I'm going to leave them alone. Philip Scott debated Anthony Brian Logan on white supremacy and illegal. What that means to me is that this conversation is not only important for those old folks who are holding the vanguard in politics, but even some of those young aspiring Black minds who actually want to jump into this space. And they think that they can even debate this in a forum style debate. Now, you see here, this one got more than 42,000 views, which was African diaspora having that debate with Anthony Brian Logan, Black conservative, on whether white supremacy was important. Now, this is around the same time that Candace Owens is going to the Senate to have that conversation.
217, and the nays are 189.
Yeas are 217,
the resolution
and the nays are 189.
All right, so the resolution is adopted in the House. As you heard right there, we're chronicling this historical moment, the government response. We can't just talk about it, so I got to give them that information as well. But as you saw there, that conversation even moved through the B1 network with hashtag Tankgate. I boy threw that out there, and it was a real conversation even being held by those who claim to be Black conservatives, standing in front of what they see as the images of those military vehicles seen in the same two spaces I was talking about earlier, those states that are willing to go all the way out, like New York and California.
From Virginia, Mr. Riggleman. All those in favor.
Hold on,
say
man. This
aye.
dude trying to talk while I'm trying to
All
talk.
those
I don't
opposed,
think he
no.
know who I am. I'm B1 Brother Moses, and I
noes
don't
have
play
it.
that bullshit. When I said cut the check, I meant that shit. Let me get back to my presentation, man. They play me. All right, and so the next black conservative, even after Tankgate, is this one here, Officer Tatum. He got a great following there. His following is diversity and inclusion at its finest. He's black, white people are listening. Sounds like it's working in his favor. Now, this is getting closer to the source again, getting closer to that White House and getting closer to being able to actually shake hands and have that conversation with the real people, right? That they are discussing when it comes to social and political and economic disadvantage. In this conversation, he jumps up and says, now Surgeon General Jerome Adams is an Uncle Tom. So as you see here, even in his own title, he's the one calling Jerome Adams an Uncle Tom. Who else knew that? He has the biggest platform. So Uncle Tom and Jerome Adams' name being combined is coming from him. That's, again, that conservative double talk that they continue to use and continue to perpetuate while saying us Democrats are the problem. Nah, bro, you the one with 94,000 views with the words Uncle Tom and Jerome sitting next to each other. When if you really respected the man, that shit shouldn't have came out of your mouth. This is the dude that he was actually referring to, which is the United States Surgeon General. He is the soldier and he is also the suit, and he's doing his job trying to walk that fine line. I tell you, I say it one more time. In a poll never conducted by Pew Research, 0% of black people, how they would grade this administration's response to the global pandemic. 0% were even asked. None. Not a phone survey or an online poll can verify how the black people really feel about the job being done by our public health officials. So again, if you're talking this global pandemic talk, then you're also talking about him, because this is the United States Surgeon General. And he's also the leading brother and only brother, if you look at it. But it is a diverse United States coronavirus task force. So if there's any disparity in healthcare coverage, if people are being denied care, if households are having a hard time managing their PPE stock, whatever that response is to try to make the people accountable for their behaviors, it's more than just people wash your hands. It's more than just people keep your masks on. That's the directive that tries to tell the people what their role is. But we know the government's response has to move itself back up through the chain of command. And where we start getting lost is that we start looking at this on a character perspective and saying, well, this brother is supposed to be taking care of the brothers. I disagree. This brother has a diverse following. Inside of his following is the United States underneath his title. He's America's doctor. So the doctor of doctors, it was almost like advocating a religion, the Lord of all lords. This is the doctor of all doctors, where he say go. The CDC still would fall underneath him. And so I wouldn't attach those words, Uncle Tom, to my brother. Nah, that's the conservatives. And while I do reserve the right to call people by that phraseology, I don't think this brother was one. And so for the conservatives to actually get 95, almost 100,000 views, where they're the young conservatives are the ones who are making that type of conversation public and known, they're the ones who are actually accountable for it. No fault to their own. They're just ignorant and they're used to double talking their way through situations. And it's until they run into the B1 network that they don't actually receive real pushback. The pushback that says this is our brother and we respect both the soldier and the suit. And we love ours. It's not just character worship. I tell you something like this. I'm not falling for the celebrity effect. When I'm judging somebody, there is a long list, a laundry list of criteria. And I'll just name those and move on because I've been on this slide for a little while. Effectiveness is important. Likability is something you just can't get away from as you move throughout whatever spaces in your stage of recovery where you and yours may be. The track record and the police record, now those are the ones that I don't investigate for myself. Their circumference of power, though, is something that I look at. What is your circle of power, your sphere of influence? That's important to me. I will look at the LinkedIn. The level of importance now is going to vary, but I'm going to give you these last ones, just the word. They don't even need an explanation, but these are important when I'm evaluating somebody. And this B1 Brother Moses, and I tell you, on the B1 network, I found some like-minded individuals. You ought to hit that like and maybe subscribe. If you're still on the fence about subscribing, then just listen a little bit longer. But these are the actual values that I look for when I'm evaluating somebody's character: duty, honor, credibility, trustworthiness, reputation, pride, competence, intelligence, experience, Christian, charisma, skills, bravery, honesty, integrity, knowledge, attractiveness, physique, history, background, direction, alliances, partners, class, and race. Now, again, the level of importance is going to vary because I got the right to reserve, my impressions. I got my own stereotypes, got my own biases. I ain't going to call a square unless that square is real square. And in this case, they were talking about a square. But there's other spaces where you got country squares who have made their space and made their mark, like Senator Tim Scott, the only registered senator, Black Republican on that list, who I expect to vote yes in the Senate. I expect, because just like there are Democrats who are more conservative, I believe that there are Republicans who are also moving towards that middle. And essentially, in times like these, we need more people to stand their line towards that middle ground. Yeah, we need it. Absolutely do. We're moving towards $23 trillion as a response, social, politically, economically, to the global pandemic. 23 trillion. And they keep playing games about this budget. And no, we don't have a day when we can say we'll pay that back. I like this senator, though, because even though he is on the Republican side, he's doing at least the best he can to not run away from the issue of race. And he's done so on many occasions, like when he was explaining driving while Black, got locked up or got harassed or detained by the police at the minimum, no less than 7 times, even while senator. At some point, either their technology sucks or they're doing that shit on purpose. I digress. Visit coronavirus.gov. Their landing page is another good space for resources. Senator Tim Scott also impressed me when he gave his speech on the floor, just like what we were watching to start this live stream, on his personal experiences with law enforcement officers. This was July 13th, 2016. And as you see here, this is the actual senator, and there are 76,000 views. But when the young Black conservative, who's not even in politics, but was invited there, uses the word Uncle Tom in association with the United States Surgeon General, he got more views than when senator, the actual sitting Republican senator, the only one there, he doesn't even get that many views. So who's really spreading the hate speech? Is it the actual Republican, Tim Scott, or these new nigga Black conservatives who are still walking the line and still don't know the difference between a comfortable socialism or a democratic socialist? If they can only rest on talking points, they wouldn't see how that 95,000 could have been used more strategically. Another thing that they do is they understand the diversity and inclusion. They say it's all America, and they are the same ones who say we're in a post-racial society, while at the same time going out of their way to attack people who are in that minority group. They would love to debate AOC. That's what they're pushing towards as young Black conservatives. It's the Candace Owens AOC debate. AOC seems like she keeps running it, but I'm running from it. But they have to continue to have that conversation if we're going to get anywhere of an impact as the young people. And we're still having a conversation. Now, I tell you, that political part, I be at odds with them, bro. You see the B1 Network information that I bring, man. I go ham. Almost every stream I give you information about at least the Congressional Black Caucus, the NAACP, what their money is, I'm constantly on their helmet. Why? Because that's who I would regard as being the representation of me. Even when they are not, they still are. There is nothing that can separate them being the only black senator like Tim Scott from being black. He doesn't have that privilege or that luxury. That's just not in existence. The conservative side can conflate the argument and make it seem like, oh, the Democrats are talking race. They're talking race. They always want to have some extreme race issue that doesn't need to be about race, while at the same time understanding that they are voting majority. Their majority of the Republican Party doesn't have to say race because they're already the majority. So it's an oxymoron for them to have to say it. But as long as you see what we saw today, which is 99% of them, 99.9% holding to their ideological lines, then there is nothing else more that you needed to say. What else did you need to see? They're going to do it regardless. So, of course, you don't have to call a square unless it's an actual square. They would rather debate this lady than debate other young black folks. And so I get it. I understand. These are the black conservatives. They have their platforms and they have to protect them. But what I'm saying is brothers like ABL need to continue to have the conversation anyway. And if there was anyone who could be convincing, it would have to be these black conservatives to tell the Candace Owens of the world when they're right or when they're wrong. They have the closest circle of or sphere of influence. They are actually still a part of Turning Point USA and using that as a political background. Now they can talk social. They can talk what's going on in society and current events and all of that other stuff. But at the bottom line, they are political and they are using this monetized platform. So it's economic. So they're going to continue to talk down on black people. They're going to continue to be disingenuous. But at the same time, we're going to keep calling them out. And it's up to us to get our platform to get to the level of, you know, the 95,000 people are listening and watching and tuning in and seeing what they have to say. So if they're the black conservatives, then the black liberals, we do need more young black liberals to have that space or that platform. Just because what I hear and what I see is redundant, right? So there was this $2 trillion economic aid package, and today we're talking about a $3 trillion more. Do you think that those black conservatives did not cash that check that they received? It's double talk, and you know it. Do you think that they said, no, sir, I'm going to take this whole thing and give it to homeless people, or I'm going to take this whole thing and give it to the church? No, sir. So that free rider program, they know that they're going to continue benefiting from it. And I think at some point it's gotten to sound so disingenuous that it's almost like they're just playing a role. That they think this shit is a game. Again, the same question, make America great again. They have to get better at answering as black conservatives when America was great. As long as they continue to allude to periods where African Americans or people who look like them were disenfranchised, as we still are. But the strongest disenfranchisement, when lynching was just more of a recurring theme, you would get more of them every year, and they refer to that as the era when America was greatest, then we're going to keep calling them double talking agents, that we will say that they sold out. Now, look, the conditions, social, political, and economic conditions may have been more favorable when it wasn't an integrated society for those spaces where it was better. Like, yeah, the Montgomery counties, those spaces where there were black mayors, black everything, black ownership. But it's been a long time since you've had spaces where black people can, at the end of a gun, with their Second Amendment rights attached, tell you and tell America that no white people are allowed to own land inside of those spaces. It's been a long ass time since you had that type of greatness in America for black people. What are they referring to? Are they referring to when we did have wealth? Because we've seen ever since the 60s that land ownership dwindled and it just went down at an enormous rate. And even then, we can't say that that was great. The 40 acre and a mule promise was never met. So how many acres are you talking about for the average black person ownership wise? Miss me with that. It was great talk. Because then if they never received their 40 acres or the land grants, the 160 acres that was given to those white families that were their grandparents' age and such, and great grandparents' age and such, the 1860s, if that's what you're talking about, the Lincoln era, of great. So our greatest generation, their great grandparents or their grandparents, if that's what you're talking about is the greatest era, then you're going to continue to fall short, because that was post-slavery and Reconstruction. You can't root the conversation that says America was greatest before integration. You can't root the conversation and say America was greatest during Jim Crow era, and then have a problem with us talking about the Jim Crow era and telling you why that era wasn't so great. So what era are you referring to? If you think the greatest generation is generation now, then let's be that. But we got to get better at what we're doing. And number one, the space race is probably better than the race to the vaccination. I'll just say that and keep it pushing. As you see here, there was that debate that got 42,000, but look at the bottom. Black conservative debates white liberal about the Black community. So when the only Black Republican senator is having his real conversations in real time using politics, it gets, what was that, 40 views. But the young Black conservative using these same social media gets $120,000 to have a fake debate. I'll say that again. Their debate with ABL with Destiny after the I'm not a racist thing, and these are the people who are talking about it. Now, again, Candace Owens was the one that they sent to the House Judiciary meeting to have a conversation about whether white supremacy even exists. She is a part of this network of young Black conservatives. This young Black conservative that's a part of that network, she got sent to have the real conversation, rather than the actual real Black conservative Republican senator. Don't let that go over your head, that young girl or young woman, she is a woman now. She has a little frame, so excuse me and my pardon. She is a woman, but that woman who's not the politician was sent over the actual real politician who I showed you, Tim Scott, to talk white supremacy. And the video that of him actually being arrested, even as a senator, and talking about it on the floor gets less views than some of these young Black conservatives who are more popular. So the real work that needs to be done, and in the real spaces where it needs to be said, they're bringing these people who are disingenuous and acting like it's just a show rather than the real shit. But when I said cut the check, I meant that shit. And I guess my mentors just got to keep beating the shit out of your mentors, killing them in the social, political, and economic debate circles where it really matters. But of course, it's not just about views, but perception does inform the decisions that we make. As you see here, the person that ABL, who is the young Black conservative, was debating, started doing some research on him, and he highlighted one of the statements that ABL made. The KKK brought us toys. Let me again tell you why this is relevant. These are the same people that say white supremacy doesn't exist, while then acknowledging what has been acknowledged as a terrorist watch list white supremacist group. That same person says the KKK brought them toys. So he acknowledges the existence of the people while at the same time debating that they don't exist. Oh, okay. When you call them on that, they move the goalpost and say, no, I'm just saying that's just not the most important issue that we face. And every time you talk about KKK, then of course, Jim Crow era lynching, no anti-lynching legislation. And even though they tried to do the real work of getting anti-lynching, which seems to be a no-brainer, they still run up against the same numbers like the ones you saw today. Partisan lines, a whole lot of white people still saying no in the Republican Party, because there is only one African-American Black man who's a part of that Senate. There's only one. His name is Tim Scott. And then you can start talking minorities and start including other people who may be mixed and diverse. But if you're talking about the representation of Blackness, there's only one, and it's being overshadowed right now by some people who call themselves Black conservatives. So they're identifying by the name, but it's mostly sounding like rhetoric. The ideology is where they fall short of knowledge. And so even a white guy, a white liberal, called him out and said, this is just dishonest. Sharing those videos there because somebody might want to look at it and say, okay, I could use that. But then you move over and continue to do the research there. Watch me debate liberal New York professor about climate change. And this is just to establish a real precedent, right? So you can go on RT, you can go on Fox, you can go in any of those spaces that are nationally syndicated. And the storyline that you tell will either confirm or reject. And because of that, we need more black men to get up and confirm black men rather than get up and be the same black man rejecting black men, but you are in fact a black man. While they can confirm white supremacy and KKK, they deny white supremacy exists and equivocate to say that it's not the most significant problem. All right. They then say, well, this black conservative, they move it to say, well, it's not enough for us to have the conversation, black conservative to white liberal. And so then they want the next man up, which is Roland Martin, of course, as black liberal. Tried to call him out right there on the lawns of the White House, major event where many of this Turning Point USA men and women met. And they had that conversation there with the standing president and the administration. So I'm not saying that they're not doing real work as a media or as young black conservatives. And in fact, it's the opposite. In fact, the work that they are doing as media is taking away from the actual work that is being done by our only black man there. And there are black conservative men who are denying the fight of black men as black men. And that's just dangerous, which is why when you get B1 Brother Moses, I'm arguing against the Thomas Sowells, the Larry Elders. I'd be crushing them clowns because these young cats, they still trying to get their boots up, right? But again, it found its way to the B1 network through O'Shea Vlogcast. Can black people survive without white people? A debate with Anthony Brian Logan and my hood homeboy, O'Shea Duke Jackson. Information Man, we know he's a part of Fraternal Brotherhood. And then Sly, who is somebody who is well-versed in Masonic teachings and that affiliation. So you got the young Masons and the young frat brothers, all of them using the same type of media in a space where young black men are representing ourselves. And it's public. And so it's still, though, as you see here, overshadowing the good works of Tim Scott. During that same time, the sole black Republican senator lambasted Republican Representative Steve King, who has a history of making anti-immigration and racist type comments. I'll give you that one. These are just a sliver of the havoc that white nationalists and white supremacists have strewn across our nation for hundreds of years. 4 little girls killed in a bombing in Birmingham, Alabama. Thousands lynched and countless hearts and minds turned cruel and hateful. So I got to talk about that. This is the actual work of the actual senator going up against the very talking points of the young black conservatives. Either I can tell you what I believe about it, or I can tell you about what the actual black senator is saying. And you argue against him because he's the one arguing against the actual white nationalist politicians that are still there, that good old boy. Now, he's the one who's actually having a conversation every day. And he's using the same talking points from a pro-black perspective, if you ask me, even though the man designates himself as a Republican. He says that there's just a sliver of havoc, that white nationalist. So he's saying, look, it might be what she's saying, of 4,000, it's relatively a small number. A sliver of havoc. Confirming their existence once again, who they are and as they identify. And then he gives the example that we know so well. Condoleezza Rice also used this example as a black woman who also identified as Republican. And when they get to that office or they get to that level of public accountability, social, political, economic disadvantage for African Americans. They don't get up there and say black women are free and they are able to do everything that they want in this world. They get up there and they tell you about these stories so that we should never forget. You see there in the middle one, though, is that they had the conversation with them. Tim Scott has the conversation with them. This only got 2.6 thousand views on Roland Martin. So again, the numbers that the same black conservatives with 100,000 people watching or views, they're the ones using the Uncle Tom with 100,000. And the actual black senators and the black liberals aren't the ones who are using that tag word or that title. And we are getting less views, 2.6. So who is really pushing this race initiative on this race baiting conversation? The people getting 100,000 views with the word Uncle Tom in their title, or the people only getting 2,000 views and who are actually talking about the rhetoric of the only African American who was there? 19,000 on the top one. But how does that compare? Well, it is a sliver of the actual influence. It is a sliver of the actual views. The ones who are actually pushing the narrative, getting 100,000 views, have it in their title. Not the Democrats, but I'll keep going. This last one I put on there because he did get emotional on, and that's what I'm calling your attention to, is to actually check out the video of South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, and he's telling his story about his arrests, and he's telling it on the floor of the Senate, not just on YouTube. And so before you can even get into where the issue lies with these young folks, you have to understand that I've given you facts and knowledge and even things that you can look up if you like to watch it, or if you like to read it, or if you have work to do. I gave you that first. And now I'm going to go into my perspective, because I went to the Pew Research to find the number and I didn't find any number. Let me check in right now with those of you all who are still rocking with me now and check it out and see where we at. I got one piece, catering to the culture, Dr. G. Peace to you. The midwife says, hell no. Appreciate that. The vote did pass. They're still talking about that $3 trillion. Those same people who were telling me up and down, oh, y'all don't deserve it. You ain't gonna get it. Don't ask for it. Now we're seeing the biggest tricking that we have ever seen. And they are using my talking points, not theirs. They're saying it's an economic stimulus and it's for the average household. And they're saying all of the shit that I said, and I'm the liberal. Jesus. And they still cutting that check. And that's what they're discussing today. Anyway, I don't know if this guy was referring to me, but I'm going to keep going, man. We're at 1 hour in, just 2 minutes after that 45-minute mark. B1 Network, Brother Moses. Man, I got some content too, though. So if I'm going to be giving content, you know, the other thing that I like to do is lessons over music. So I'm going to give you a little musical break right here and transition before I get back into it. Peace, Brother George Macon. All right, so my light was perfect at first, but yeah, that light started hitting me right in my eyebrows. All right, man, take the link, Brother George. Go and come up here and tell me what your perspective is, man. Another $3 trillion stimulus package. That's what the actual topic is, but I'm going in deep from the level of politics, social, political, and economics. Right now, I'm focused on the politics. The Black conservative has been making a name. They're making splashes. When you look at their videos, they're getting the big views. And because they're the ones who are getting the most traction in this internet space, we got to talk about it. We know what they're talking about. And I know that I disagree, but let me put that disagreement on record, man. Anyway, I hope it's not skipping. I'm finna jump back into this information. Let me share a link with my bro real quick before I do that. more than welcome to join the stream and help me build this thing on up, man. All right, so now what I want to do is start my screen share. Give you one B1 salute just like that. Get back to the screen share. I need this one right here. I need this to matter. Get me out the way because it's going to get heated. And I don't try to be so emotional. I try to give it from a more logic-based perspective, but you know me, I'm B1 Brother Moses. There is a strong bias that Candace Owen shows. It is a strong bias or a favorable perspective of whiteness and a disfavorable perspective of blackness. And you can hear it every time she opens her mouth, and she's not afraid to tell you what she thinks about her own blackness. So she can speak from a vernacular that is black, and she can speak from a vernacular that is European. And she uses the European in order to talk shit about a nigga. At her hearing on confronting white supremacy, there was a lot said that can fly under the radar, but there was also a lot said that you have to hold on to. At this, it was about that run up in a church and kill people, and the defense of even that, and the denial of even the white supremacists or the acclaimed so-called white supremacists who ran up in a church and killed people. And even with that information, she went on in and said it does not exist. Turn it around and run from the comment and make it seem like, oh, I'm just saying it's not the biggest issue, and then jump into more liberal thinking that says education and the household and black families, those are the more important issues, and we have to address that. Single mom, while at the same time saying my mom should have left my dad sooner. All of the different self-hate signs that one would expect to see in dealing with someone suffering from a sickness. Op-ed blasted her even then, the communications director of Turning Point USA, as she allows herself to be the mouthpiece of what others would blatantly call a dangerous philosophy. What's so dangerous about a black woman believing that she can do it without government handouts is the thing that she says. And she also said what's so dangerous about a black woman that's promoting independence of thought in the black community. And so she uses colloquialisms that if you write it down and read it, you would have the tendency to agree. And then you would find her saying that other people are making it racist, while at the same time kidnapping this narrative about her being a black woman, promoting independent thought in the black community. You know, many of us would disagree, and we would ask her to open up them books. If she opens up her Turning Point USA, and she doesn't have to show it to us, but if she opens it up, is there a majority of black people? Or is she still speaking to a majority of white people? And what's so dangerous about it is that if she is not even talking to black women, she's talking to white people about black women. And she's saying that they ain't shit. Almost lambasts her own mother, calling it almost a weakness to try to preserve the relationship with a black father. Obviously, he was some kind of black. But lambasting her mother in public space, not privately, that she should have left that man sooner. I don't know the circumstances, I don't know the situations, but a weakness being portrayed. One that can cause a nigga to confuse whether or not I am talking to a woman who understands or a girl who is still traumatized. I don't know who I'm speaking to at any given point when you deal with this face right here. This same person who can seemingly understand the significance of Kanye West's conversation with the president, talking about Air Force One and the space program. And she gets in the room and talks of a disenfranchised black woman while saying, I am independent and free to achieve that I set my mind to. I'll give it to you in her words. She says, I think independently. I'm a free thinker And I don't believe that because I have a certain skin tone that I absolutely have to subscribe to all of these ideas, which on paper do not make any sense whatsoever. That's what she says. Now, problem, she's the one talking to white people. She has the 100,000 followers or viewers or whatever it is. And if you look through those viewers, it's mostly white people. She's not even talking to us. Her viewership is higher than many of the black media spaces where black liberals are even using. She gets more hits, more clicks from white people. Her numbers are better. And she's the one who uses rhetoric like, I don't believe that because I have a certain skin tone. So who's the one making it about race? If she has the bigger platform and she's the one talking about skin tone and she's the one saying black women should have left their husbands sooner, then at the same time espousing family values, but lambasting her mother for not leaving her black man sooner. And I don't know the situations. I'm just giving you the double talk. It seems that if she wants to compete with the black male ideology, then she's going to have to stop talking about race in the spaces where she moves because it's causing confusion. Kanye West goes in and talks about planes, trains, and automobiles, manufacturing, and the things that America can do. And she goes in there and talks about a certain skin tone and why, because she has that skin tone, that is not absolutely mean that she should subscribe to all of the ideas. She vocalized how Antifa, an alt-left, all-white gang attacked her, and an all-black police force, well, majority black, as she walked it back. And as you listen to her different speeches that she gave, she walked it back a little bit. But the black police force had to protect her from an alt-left, all-white gang. And this is the same person who says white supremacy essentially doesn't exist. And she says it at big audiences. As you see this audience right here. See, I'm not just saying this shit just to be saying it. I'm giving you what you need to understand. If you look across this audience, do you think that this is majority of the sister soul? Or do you think she's talking to big groups of white people at that, telling them about race, and then saying the Democrats always make it about race as her favorite talking point? But she's the one with the big audience, and she's the one talking to all of these white people about race, just like her underling, Officer Tatum, who gets more views than Tim Scott, the real black conservative. Will the real black conservative please get more views? Because she was the one called to have the conversation. This is Candace Owens again at the hearing on confronting white supremacy, while at the same time being the person who said, well, an alt-left, all-white group assaulted me physically while I was just trying to have breakfast. Defended her position on where Black America ranks white supremacy and white nationality, among other issues, is how it's been projected. Damn, man. I'm the type of nigga to walk outside and tell that ice cream truck to move it the fuck along. Because I'm not the ice cream man. But I digress. Candace Owens defended her position on where Black America ranks white supremacy and white nationality, or white nationalism should have been, among the issues we face. Now, again, I did the research and I did not find one Pew Research. I found 0% of African Americans were asked, even when it comes to the coronavirus. So where in the fuck did she actually get the information that says where African Americans rank white supremacy and white nationalism? I just got to know. Because if she didn't get it from what they would consider a reputable research organization, then we must be talking about a person of one. And if we're only talking about a person of one, then it definitely can't be somebody who says they've experienced a white supremacist group or an alt-left, all-white group that she refers to as being on the terrorist watch list, Antifa or whatever, as somebody who assaulted her. If she's the army of one, she can't be that same one who says it doesn't happen. I digress, but I don't really. She attempted to mischaracterize the motives, essentially creating a tin hat conspiracy narrative that the issue of white supremacy is meant to racialize the election. And that happened at 3 minutes and 29 seconds in this video. This whole video is only 4 minutes and 59 seconds. If you want to see what she actually had to say around the major issue that impacts us here today, because her latest blunder was just to say what she said about Ahmaud Arbery and his father, and everybody else who, after the father said this was a lynching, has also called it a lynching. And so while you got Tim Scott, the only African-American senator who's saying it exists, his voice is being overshadowed by the numbers in media and even in the House, because as you see here, this is C-SPAN. She was there at the Judiciary Committee meeting, and her voice is being overshadowed by the one black man who should be speaking. And she's debating essentially him. But because they're on the same side, they got to work this shit out. They're on the same side in this. They are black conservatives. He is a registered Republican, not just somebody saying exit from the Democratic Party. I don't know what her affiliation is. I would never even ask, because that's not what matters to me. What matters, though, is that we make sure you know that in her own words, she is saying some very, very dangerous shit. Oh, let me do this then. Let me take a quick pause for the cause right there. See if my brother George Macon has decided to join. If not, I will give you her own words to be fair and to be thorough. He's at the supermarket. We're going to give brother George. Now, you know, I have a voice, my passionate voice, when I really start going in and I really think I'm saying some strong shit, is a lot stronger than this one that I'm using. I'm trying not to use the same, mistakes over and over. When we have the conversation with the black conservatives, they say, oh, why are you so emotional? Why are you so emotional? That's what they say, right? So I'm just trying to give you this information, and you see it's already ready. So let's do that. Let me turn the music off. I think that low-lying music was pretty good, but now we got to give it to you in her own words, since this is the black woman who had to represent the black community at the House Judiciary Committee on White Supremacy. And she got up there and said it doesn't exist, while the African-American man, who is the only black senator who is in the Senate, was not the one to go and sit down and have this conversation. So let's give her 5 minutes, and I ain't even gonna cut her off. I'm gonna just let her say what she got to say. If I had to analyze the things that she said, right and wrong, that I agreed with in this video, we would be here 4 hours. I could, and I am from the tribe of long winds. But I ain't gonna do that. I'm gonna just let her say it in her own words, a little bit of it. I said it was at 3 minutes and 29 seconds. So that's where I'm gonna jump in at. But I do want to play it in its entirety, so she doesn't then turn around and say, well, no, I didn't say that. And maybe there's something else that you might catch in this that I may have missed. And so I'm gonna let it play. I'm not just gonna send you and tell you where the link is and tell you where to go. I'm gonna give you that information here. Here you go. Oh, crap, I missed one step. Hold up. So let me end that. Let me jump back over. Stop my screen share. Share my screen. Add the audio so you can hear it from her. And then I'm going to give me a little bit more volume there. All right. We working because we got work to do. Again, this is what we're talking about, the $3 trillion stimulus. They did move it through. It's not the whole stimulus, but just the motion that was put on. It's another deflectionary tactic. We know that. They'll bring the conversation back next week, though, and we'll see what happens with the $3 trillion, and will they cut another check, most importantly. But there's more than that. It's social, political, and economic. And so Conversation. Our brother's actually being overlooked and overshadowed by the young Black Conservative Party. Blexit is doing its job. It's doing exactly what they were intended to do. And Candace Owens is the director of communications of Blexit. So their ambition is to help move more African Americans away from the Democratic Party. I'm not against that either, but I got content to deliver on. There are some real ideological principles that I disagree on, and we're gonna have that conversation. Until then, let's keep cutting their conversation, their talking points to shit.
I just have to say that I object strenuously to your use of the word hilarious. To me, this feels a lot like your reaction to being named in one of these manifestos. Now, you're of course not responsible for the words of somebody writing that document, but I do think that laughing at it is a real problem because these are real families that are impacted by this violence. And I think our effort.
Excuse me. I know she's going to want to try to defend herself from this Becky, and I really don't give a fuck what that Becky is talking about. I'm not the one who goes off of what the competing groups are saying or doing. We got work to do. And so as you see here, and then there's a Brad, or the chairperson is up there. I'll show you that he's there.
So I'm going to go to the two members who have not yet, and we'll give an opportunity for a closing thought to.
Okay, so I show you that he's up there. This is actually legit. And then you'll see she gets
Just Lee, this is a gang up on you. You know, we're giving.
They're ganging up on you. They love to use that type of language. So we'll let them keep going, but it won't be on this stream. See, this is why the black man was supposed to have been there having this conversation in the first place. But even then, I know there's only limits to which what they can do anyway. But the black man is supposed to be having this.
Nationalism is ranks nowhere near the top of the issues that are facing Black America. And the reason that you are bringing them up in this room is because it is attempt to make the election all about race as the Democrats.
Not in my case,
Mr. Chairman, it's my time. It's my time.
You've got your time. Every 3 more seconds.
Even right there, when I first watched this one, sorry, I'm gonna have to do a little bit more in-depth analysis. He cut her off, and I didn't like that. Now, I do know that she cuts people off, but I would still defend her over him cutting her off, and I don't give a fuck what his title says. But we'll continue.
4 years, you bring up race, and you knew exactly what I meant when I said hilarious, and you just tried to do live what the media does all the time to Republicans, to our president, and to conservatives, but you tried to manipulate what I said to fit your narrative, okay? I was not referring to the subject matter that is hilarious. I said it's hilarious that we are sitting in this room today, and I've got 2 doctors and admissions, and nobody can give us real numbers that we can respond to so we can assess how big of a threat this is.
That is what I've always been going off of and giving her praise for, is that all of these doctors and all of these experts, they cannot quantify white supremacy or white nationalism, unreported or unreported. To substantiate the claim is asking for accountability. So I love that she said that. That's on record. You know, all of these meetings are transcribed. That is on the books of African American and how we've been confronting this racial inequality in America. That statement is on the books. It wasn't a firm statement. Like some people would think they're going to walk in there and just tell them, look, we need to see the numbers. They think they're going to get the police union to actually document all of those, you know, joyrides and all of those, you know, back of the alley beatings that they put down on the nigga. No, you're not going to walk in there. And even if you did, you would still get the same result that she got, which is nothing. They said we don't got the numbers. They said they don't have a duty to report the numbers. They're not going to report real justice or just injustice violations claims. They just will not do it. And I don't like the fact that that's the reality, but I do understand that it needed to be said in this meeting. She asked them to produce the numbers, and none of them were able to produce the numbers. That needs to be said. What is the data? Where is it? See, now when you ask that question, now you're saying, well, whose job is it to have accurate reports and such? Now, when you get those reports, then you're doing something. But if we're not even going to hold them accountable for not keeping the appropriate data, then this shit is for the birds, because they're a union. They're going to protect the jobs of their members anyway. You can keep getting police brutality. You can keep getting retired officer. You can keep getting neighborhood watch cases or deputize or the deputization process. But these patty rollers or these patrollers, these slave codes will continue. The Jim Crow shit will continue. The lynching, because there's no anti-lynching bill, then they don't have to qualify it as lynching. They can keep it on the definition of, well, I didn't use a rope, didn't use a rope around your neck as the cause of death to be the definition of lynching. And they can keep having that conversation and kicking it down the can while they can tie the rope around your body and drag you up the street behind that truck if they so see fit. And then you would still have that conversation later on what does that actually mean. But in any event, the idea of a threat of white supremacy is ever present. And we know that by the numbers, and we know it by ideology and by affiliation. You can still use the social media. They're not hiding. They're not in a cave some damn where. Like you used to think about the hillbillies, in places like Virginia, ABL or whoever it is, that there are some hillbillies who may be off the grid, but for the most part, you don't have to think of white supremacy in those terms, nor do you have to think of white nationalism in those terms. But the majority is still operating to protect its best interests at the expense of this greater good. Those diversity and minority groups are the greater good that is being compromised. If you're in the majority, you're good. If you're not in that majority, then you are what they would consider this other term where black is being lumped into a minority. And we are not that fucking minority. You just got me fucked up. We are still black, African-American, if you want to use the Jesse Jackson, or American descendant of slaves, if you like this new movement that is on identity and how we identify for our identity politic. Race is still included. The majority are still doing what they're doing. They're still voting along their ideological and social and economic and race-based lines. And she seems to miss that, which is why, because she has the highest numbers, they would continue to invite her. Her positions are the ones that continue to increase the advantage for those who are already in that side. And it increases the distance and the time it would take to rectify this situation, or that gradualism approach, that black conservatives or the more conservative approach. It extends that time needed towards the reconciliation or whatever it is black folks would need to have. And so I digress. I'll let her keep speaking, but that is the major talking point. And that's the one that we hold them to. And that's the one that is carried down from a legacy of African-American political activists, social, and that lane or that line of thinking says, show me the data. Data is accountability. It says, show me the accountability. And what were they accountable for? Who were they accountable for? What was the criteria? It's asking those process-oriented questions. And at this point, you're asking the people who had designated themselves as the stewards, jurisdiction over entire communities of your people, the people who were the stewards over the healthcare, the people who were the stewards over the banks, the people who were the stewards over the regulation and the audits, the people who were the stewards over the public education system. You're asking them to provide you the numbers that show their incompetence. And they keep showing no. So the argument, or the liberal perspective, is one that says, look, there's some people who have been in these positions that have fucked us over royally, literally royally. And like she says, literally royally fucked us. And getting them to be accountable is going to take a united or a concerted effort, which is why coalition building and partnering and all of that is even necessary. Why it's even necessary to say diversity or minority groups, lump them in together. Despite us being lumped in, don't let that shit fool you. We still have work to do. What we bring to the table to fight for our own best interests is going to be important. Don't let that conversation don't lose focus, my nigga. Anyway.
Because you know that it is not as big of a threat as you are trying to make it out to be, so you can manipulate. And the audacity of you to bring up the Christchurch shooting manifesto and make it seem as if I laughed at people that were slaughtered by a homicidal maniac is, in my opinion, absolutely despicable. And I think that we should be above that. To try to assign reality or any meaning to a
And everything she said, because she said it in the way she said it, it's right, but it's still wrong. It's not the biggest issue. Man, come on with that bullshit. But you're going to have to come over here with the liberals if you want to say it's not the biggest issue. You can't at the same time be somebody that wanted your mom to leave her husband, but at the same time be the person that says we need the black family to stay intact. So you throw your mom under the bus while saying conservative values are pro-family. She should have aborted your little ass. Hey, that's funny. The issue is that you have a serious issue with the black male leadership. And while you can have black mentors who tend to agree, like the Larry Elders, you can throw under the only black senator and steal that limelight on his talking point, which is racism and how he's experienced it, even from the criminal justice system. And you want to throw out all of the criminal justice infractions and violations that have been done in order to make a point. And the point is stupid. It's stupid to say the Democrats are about race when by the numbers, you're winning and you're the one making it about race. It's stupid to say that the solution is for intact black homes when you're the one mad at your mom for not breaking up the black homes sooner. And then it's even more stupid for you to say that you represent the black community while most of your demographic are white people, and then you marry white. Your everything is white. So stop calling yourself a black conservative. Don't identify as black at all. The thing is, though, she knows that she's the nigga and that she's viewed in the eyes as the nigga, which is why I think she's just playing a game. But this shit ain't no game. When I said cut the check, nigga, I meant that shit.
Homicidal maniac writing a manifesto, which, by the way, let the record show, also stated Spyro the Dragon, the child's cartoon, as a source of inspiration. He also cited Nelson Mandela as a source of information. I don't think that Nelson Mandela has inspired mass shootings.
Do you hear her, dumbass? I don't think that Nelson Mandela inspired shootings. Bitch, you're uneducated. Do you know what the apartheid struggle was that violent? Man, get your dumb ass out of here, man. Read a book.
Correct me if you think I'm wrong.
Correct me if you think I'm wrong, and that's all I'm doing here. I'll let it keep going, though.
Would rather assign meaning to a homicidal maniac than to actually address what I said, the things that I said today that are actually harming Black America. Number one, father absence. And number two.
Number one, father absence from the same person who said her mama should have divorced the nigga sooner.
The education system and the illiteracy rate. Illegal immigration ranks high.
Education and illiteracy. Now that's interesting because you're still talking about 80% white women. If you look at the school boards and if you look at the makeup of the Department of Education and where is that real authority, she's going to have to start knowing that that's not the black people's problem. And so then trying to make it seem like the biggest issue for the black community is education or the disparity in education, you would be wrong. It is that black folks are mandated, for the most part, if their kids want to attend school, they have to go to one of these white schools in that system. Now, it wasn't until the conscious community where I even found any information about homeschooling. But most African Americans are under the assumption that if we value education, that necessarily equates to valuing public education. That's it. Public education, private education. If she wants data on white supremacy, what are the actual numbers of black people who can benefit from private education? What percentage of black kids are actually educated through that private education that she's referring to, the high quality education? It's not just the reality, so you still must be arguing against the public. Again, you're arguing against the state. Again, you're not arguing that that's the black people's issue. That is the state's issue if public education is failing.
pushing ranks high, white supremacy and white nationalism, if I had to make a list again of 100 things.
And that's only because she doesn't understand what people are saying by white supremacy and white nationalism. If the people that she's in there, that she's talking to right now, have the ability to, and the authority, to send hundreds of thousands of African Americans, whites, Mexicans, whoever it is, 3,000 miles away to go kill people, then I digress.
Would not be on it. This hearing, in my opinion, is a farce, and it is ironic that you're sitting here and you're having 3 Caucasian people testify and tell you what their expertise are. Do you want to know what my expertise are? Black in America.
There it is, and that's the one that actually killed people with her. And because of that, I did want to put that in her own words.
My whole life, all 30 years, and I can tell you that you guys have done the exact same thing every 4 years ahead of an election cycle, and it needs to stop.
She loves that one. That's like her favorite talking point. She gonna take that motherfucker to the grave. She love that one. I don't. I still think it's creating a boogeyman.
Say that I object strenuously to your use of the word hilarious.
And so it's a semantic argument, just like lynching. Now, if y'all stick with me, you're going to learn something, because in debate, which is what politics is, she equivocated the entire murder of that young man and made it about the word lynching, and then tried to describe it from a context that said that lynching. Now, for somebody who's not as astute as me, I do know that they tried to get some anti-lynching legislation in this administration, and the shit went nowhere again. So it did have to be on record, but unfortunately, her position is the only counter narrative that they have at this level. I mean, if you look at the numbers she's pulling in, she's probably killing Auntie Maxine numbers. So let's talk influence.
Time has expired. Ms. Owens.
That was unfair.
It was not unfair. You had plenty of extra time.
No, it did not.
Ms. Owens.
Mr. Chairman, ranking. There we go. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Mr. Collins, thank you for having me here today. I received word on my way in that many of the journalists were confused as to why I was invited, and none of them knew that I myself was the victim of a hate crime when I was in high school.
And there you go. So not only did I show you the one, I'm going to show you another one. These same people talking out on these issues of the, look, she will tell you that black people have to stop playing the victim card. While at the same time, what is the very first thing she did at this hearing? They will tell you black people have to stop playing the victim card. She is spot on right. Nobody knew who the fuck? Why the fuck is she the one speaking on behalf of the black community? We got a black senator. Who the fuck is this? We kind of like the direction that he's going in.
It's not.
Ms. Owens.
Mr. Chairman, ranking. There we go. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Mr. Collins, thank you for having me here today. I received word on my way in that many of the journalists were confused as to why I was invited.
You feel me? They like, why, hate crimes. She's not an officer of the law. She don't got a law degree.
And none of them knew that I myself was the victim of a hate crime when I was in high school. That's something that very few people know about me because the media and the journal.
So you got invited because you're a victim. While at the same time, she will espouse that black people need to stop with the victim mentality. I wonder if there are more examples of where she went on national syndicated TV or whatever it was. This is politics, or so the political part of the socio-political. I wonder if there are other times where she gets on and plays this fucking victim card. But out of her own words, she just got there and said the journalist was wondering why I was invited, but many of them don't know that I was actually a victim of a hate crime. So either the white supremacist thing exists or it doesn't. Which one is it?
journalists and the left not interested in telling the truth about me because I don't fit the stereotype of what they like to see in Black people. I'm a Democrat. I support the President of the United States, and I advocate for things that are actually affecting the Black community. I'm honored to be here today in front of you all because the person sitting behind me is my 75-year-old grandfather.
She advocates for things that are actually affecting the Black community, like telling her mother she should have left her father sooner. I don't know the circumstances, but if you're telling me you're for the family, that doesn't seem to align.
I've always considered myself to be my grandfather's child, and I mean to say that my sense of humor, my passion, and my work ethic all comes from the man that is sitting behind me. My grandfather grew up on a sharecropping farm in the segregated South.
Look at this shit. Right into the sharecropping farm, huh? She know exactly what Black liberals do. And she's using a very liberal tactic here, which is to tug at the heartstrings of both history with a visual representation. This is my grandfather. For those white men, they see a grandfather. Or so they should. Unless you're talking about white men who don't look at Black men as men.
Grew up in an America where words like racism and white nationalism held real meaning.
So again, racism and white nationalism held real meaning. She's the one emphasizing that shit. Let's go.
Under the Democrat Party's Jim Crow laws. My grandfather's first job was given to him at the age of 5 years old, and his job was to lay tobacco out to dry in an attic.
So this is the same person who says we need to move past that rhetoric of Jim Crow and how dangerous that is, while she goes to the judiciary, the hearing itself, and even brings her granddad from that same era. Come on, man. Can we get some consistency? Why is that too much to ask? It's because they've been double talking so long.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In congressional hearings, the minority party gets to select its own witnesses. And of all the people that Republicans could have selected, they picked Candace Owens. I don't know Miss Owens. I'm not going to characterize her. I'm going to let her own words do the talking. I'm going to play for you the first 30 seconds of a statement she made about Adolf Hitler.
I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets, the definition gets poisoned by leaders that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist.
Look at
but
her.
If Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. Problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German. Everybody to be speaking German.
All right, so my first question is to Ms. Kirshanoff. Ms. Owens said, quote, if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. So when people...
If Hitler just wanted to make Germany great, okay, fine. See, they've been double talking so long, man. Hey, he fucked her up with that one. Me and this Asian dude would have had to get out there in that parking lot and square up like a motherfucker for me to defend my sister. Nigga, her honor was on the line, and he hit her with he hit her with an uppercut right there, man. That was just foul. And everybody likes to say the model minority and shit. That little sneaky bastard. I mean, I bet she thought she had a good one coming too. He was like, first of all, I don't know who she is. And then turn right around and play the recording. Did he play her? Oh, my mama, he did something so sneaky and foul. He was like, I don't know who she is or why she here. And then already got a tape recorder ready. And he cut her so hard right there. See, the problem is she's been double talking so long. You see how she tried to run and make it about globalism? You know good and goddamn well that's not what they were talking. Nationalism, I don't really see a problem with nationalism. You see how she confirmed that? Which means you also then don't see a real problem with white nationalism, which is the confirmation that it exists. And you know they are the majority. Their sense of pride and dignity and whatever you want to measure a worth by. All of that shit. And he sure called her out on that shit. She said, make Germany great again. That's hella funny that she said that shit. She got fucked up with that video. I don't give a fuck what you say. You could come up here and argue with B1 Brother Moses all you want. He uppercutted the shit out of her, and we would have had to square up like a motherfucker in that parking lot. And that shit ain't cool. And everybody lumps us together like we're all in this together. No, there are alliances and allies and shit. Many of them shits be temporary. Most of them don't ever get really fully organized. And it's more like you send your volunteers, they send their volunteers. We have a good meeting or a good day, and then everybody goes their own way. That's really how social and political meetings or partnerships and shit work. Or you operate autonomously doing your thing and contributing. But you don't, if you become dependent on that, that's a problem, which is why I keep saying I hate when I have my brothers and people in the B1 network and other folks like to talk about these little sneaky ass Asians, dude. Y'all tripping, man. Stop talking about the Asians and focus on the success stories that we do have. Hate it or love it, this is your success story. This black woman who is not a girl, who I said earlier, this woman is up there trying to fight these battles. She shouldn't have to, and in this case, she shouldn't be doing it, period. But she's the one that's there. Now, I'm not showing anything that other people don't already know.
Targeting conservatives. Turning Point USA's Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens are attacked by left-wing protesters while trying to have breakfast at a Philadelphia coffee shop. Watch this.
That one, those conservatives that say we love the police, but they hate socialism. Man, shut your ass up. It just doesn't make sense. It's just the double dutching. Unless you really struggle with understanding the difference between, you know, a democratic system or a socialist system and how that interplays, or the correlation. You have entire unions that are protecting those same police that you say you love. So how are you so against the union or the Democrat? Teachers, do you love teachers or not? Because if you need the public education system to even have those teachers that we got, come on, that's still the teachers union. Like in California, it was Cal Stars. In any event, they're arguing against their own talking points if they believe in the family and in the community. And I haven't heard her say anything about God, so we'll stay away from that one. But the major issue that she's on now is that violence or white supremacist terrorism or violence like that does not exist. And it's not the major issue for black people. So maybe she's not on the does not exist. She's trying to walk this narrative, this very thin line of not offending the actual white nationalists who would fuck her up on this platform if she wasn't saying this type of shit. She shouldn't have to be there. We know that whatever it is in this role that she's playing is a dangerous role. And the games that she's trying to play in this space, I don't think she built for that shit, bruh. The expectation is too high. She can't body this shit. And so she has to continue to assume that she has the favor and the advantages and the privileges of whiteness, and do the same thing that we hear in Black YouTube, criticize black men and do a damn good job at it. Cause she got some cooks in this bad boy too. She be roasting motherfuckers, but we'll get there.
God, joining us right now to detail all of it and tell us what happened. Candace Owens is Turning Point USA's communications director. And Candace, it's good to see you this morning. You've been so incredibly articulate about what's going on.
I hate that compliment. You are so articulate. You are so talented. No matter where you go, even to these levels, white people suck at compliments. Like maybe the Italians are pretty good at it. I think they got some good ones. The French, every once in a while, they got very good, like endearing compliments and shit. But most regular Anglo-Saxon, Welsh, Dutch, Germanic, Viking, these motherfuckers, they suck at compliments. It's just not their thing. Anyway.
That must have been scary for you. Tell us what happened.
That must have been scary.
We were eating at this restaurant, and there was a group of 4 individuals that were bearing the Antifa decal all over their clothing and on their backpack. So we recognized they were in Antifa, and they instantly recognized Charlie and I, and they were whispering amongst themselves. Looking back, there was quite some distance between us. They were on the opposite side of the restaurant, but we didn't think anything of it. They recognized us, we recognized them. I guess they sent out a bat signal, if you will, to the local Antifa chapter, and they all came within 20 minutes. There were about 25 to 30 protesters.
And see, so when she makes the comment that she made about the Arbery family, that's what she's projecting. Is from her. This isn't the same experience she was talking about earlier when she was in high school and she was a victim of a hate crime, and that's why she got to go and sit down and have that hearing or attend that hearing, and why she got to speak at that hearing. No, this is not even that one. This is a different incident from the woman who says white supremacy is not the issue. And in this one incident, she said they made like phone calls, and in less than 20 minutes, like 50 people showed up on her helmet. And this is the same one. And she doesn't see how fortunate and blessed she was to have not been drug up out of that motherfucker, tarred and feathered or lynched. She doesn't see the benefit of that blessing. I don't hear spirituality in this woman. No. I hear someone longing for the protection of white people and being denied it. And so the only thing that she can do is diminish herself in their sights, continue to play this victim card. As you see, this is another victim card being played. Oh, they harassed me at lunch.
Outside on the streets.
What do they want? What are they protesting?
Just us being conservative. You're not allowed to be a conservative thinker and eat breakfast publicly, apparently. We've done.
And she says it's that conservative shit, but they was out there calling her a race traitor and shit. She know that they was on her helmet about race too. She can keep trying to hide, but nah, the evidence is there. You can't have video that this right.
Nothing.
Fuck
We
it.
said nothing. I think the restaurant owner was shocked at that.
She said, I said nothing. No, you was hollering back. We heard you. It's on video, you liar. Integrity is just not the thing with these double talking people, man. Once they start going on a roll.
Moment when they realized that their friends had arrived, they shouted at us in the restaurant, calling us Nazis and fascists.
Nazis and fascists, the same person who said, well, if Hitler wanted to make Germany great again, he could have did that. But all right, so it seems like you know something about that.
And I said, do you realize I'm a black woman? You're calling me a Nazi.
And here go, it doesn't matter. I'm a black woman, no matter where she, hey man, maybe it's just me. She's the one who has the rhetoric that says the Democratic Party always throws around race. But in none of these videos has she not thrown around race. And she has the highest viewing and highest following. White supremacy doesn't exist, but there is a terrorist group as identified by our federal. They were able to rally 50 folks right outside of where you were having breakfast. But it doesn't exist. And it's not your problem. Okay. Candace Owens was attacked by Antifa. She said, my particular presence obviously annoys them because I am a Black American. It's because Black America is waking up. We are starting to understand that it is the left that is angry. It is the left that is violent, and it is traditionally and still the Democrats that are racist. These are her own words, bro. Maybe I'm telling you something that you already knew though, but for somebody, they didn't know whom we were referring to when we were talking about Candace Owens. And so they think that Black Twitter or Black YouTube and people going at her is uncalled for. I just wanted to make sure that y'all got her own words because she's not going to respond. She is busy. And when she does drop a video, them shits be getting hundreds of thousands of views and shit. She is like the celebrity Black politician right now, even more so than what we're in America. If there's somebody in the 20th century or 2020 who is still, if we're in the 20th century and we still only have one African-American man senator, That is the bigger problem in the Black community, because we don't have the adequate representation in the political part of our socio, political, economic, and yes, racial experience here in America. That our politics, we are absent. Economics, we are still struggling at 2%, not 13%. Now, you can run towards public education all you want, and you can continue, and this is Miss Candace Owens, she can continue to blame her mother for not leaving the Black man or breaking up that Black home sooner. But those are the real issues of the Black community. She claims to be the Black conservative while saying the Democrats are the ones pushing race. I don't disagree. I think we got to push race. But you can't have the biggest platform and always say Black woman this, Black woman that. Just because of my skin tone doesn't mean I have to agree with everything that everybody in the group, all of that weird shit that on paper it is very true. The statement, as long as you continue to qualify it using semantic arguments like everything, everybody, and everybody and everybody, and all of everybody. As long as you can qualify it like that, then it's a true statement nonetheless. But it's still stupid and a distraction. The Black man, Tim Scott, the only Black Republican senator, he tends to disagree, and he believes that criminal justice reform should be higher up, just like economically the opportunity zones is something that he thinks Black men should be higher up and taken advantage of. He doesn't want distractions pulling the Democratic or the economically savvy, those who would be more inclined to agree because of the economic pros. They would be more inclined to agree with economic opportunity for Black folks. He doesn't need that distraction of, oh no, Black people are, man, I quit. I'm gonna go to this next slide, because after this is where she said it was an all Black police force. This was 30 people that assembled. And if the police weren't there, oh, there it is, her spirituality. God knows what would have happened. And so she thought it was an all Black police force. She afterwards started walking it back and saying it was predominantly Black. I'm gonna give you some more context, because this is all going to be a vital consideration for anyone who really wants to play this game. Her major talking point today, and we deal in this shit. We don't need the talking points, but we deal in it. This is it in one sentence, as stated on the Revolt Summit. Diddy Nim, hip hop effect, the celebritization or the celebrity effect. She said, I'm getting tired of the Democrat Party drumming up the same issues every 4 years, taking advantage of the Black vote and doing absolutely nothing to fix our communities, then expecting us to vote for them again. It's a hell of a talking point if you are the chief communications director for the Turning Point and your political strategy that you're working is Blexit, or the Black exit from the Democratic Party. So she's tired of the Democratic Party, and she's saying that as a representation of Black women, and she uses it from the previous quote as being an independent and free-thinking woman with the trauma of experiencing whatever she experienced that would cause her to get in a public space and wish her mother would have been more independently thinking sooner, and go against their very conservative talking point about family. No, the father is not the head of the house. That mother should have been freer thinking and left his ass sooner. And while father absenteeism can be the big blame all game, which she is a little bit correct on that on paper, what she's actually advocating is the opposite. A boogeyman, then, being a disgruntled Democrat, if you ask me, who has a job for the Republican side and is doing a good job. She's doing what her job is. but a boogeyman nonetheless for someone to continue to play that victim. Only invited because of her ability to play that victim while telling Black people not to play that victim. Well, Candace, I agree on this one section here, taking advantage of the Black vote. I disagree with almost everything else. I don't know if she's getting tired. I don't care if she's getting tired. I know that this is a political machine and that other groups like Chicago and New Orleans politics, they may be able to give you better data, good and bad, but better data nonetheless on Black leadership. And so I don't run from the Democratic Party or the Black leaders who are there. I just say, how do we hold them accountable, even as media? And I just call their ass out. Now, I personally make my own initiatives. I like to move in my own little spaces and do what I can do when I can do it. Let me finish up on this one. This was 2019. The biggest issue this campaign year is that we're starting to hear the word socialism a lot in America. And that was a shot that Candace Owens took across the brow because Bernie Sanders was the front runner. And so when I'm saying she's being a bit, double talkish, almost triple talkish to keep throwing out this big white fear of socialism, while at the same time saying, the teachers, the education system. Well, that's teachers and that's unionization. That's social at its best. And we love the police is the same thing. Firemen, our military folks, all of that is government. That's bigger government, not smaller government. If you're asking for anything there, I digress. I like this slide though. I'm gonna use this one in some more conversations later. I think she did well with the blazer on, pulling the hair back and nothing over the ears. That was pretty dope. I think it's a timeless piece and ensemble that she brought together. I typically don't judge people by the looks, but that's essentially her entire argument, is judge people by their looks. This don't play the victim is a thing that she continues to use, and this deflection must be called out, right? And so she can continue to use the double talk, and when she does it, we're gonna be on that helmet, B1 Network, and I salute y'all. So she wants to deflect the audience from the deflection with another deflection. So right now, everybody's consuming information about Ahmaud Arbery in the case, consuming it. She wants to deflect the audience from the deflection. So what was the original deflection? Is that it was a Black man jogging. The father said the son was lynched. It's a murder. And she wants to deflect it with another deflection. What is her deflection now? Well, of course, it's semantics. It's not about race. It's not about the word lynching or how they were killed. It's not about police brutality. It's not even about the legal terms. It's just taking the conversation with semantic arguments. It happens in debate. And once she's allowed that to happen, which is, oh, my bad, I wanted to do something here. So her forehead has acne, since she wants to judge people by the look. So that's another trait or a characteristic of a young, burgeoning young woman, or as they're developing, almost even girl, like, damn, this skin or dermatology or whatever. And so the conversation about lookership, I don't really like it. I'm not really good at that game. She has small ears and a little button nose. I don't do those type of conversations. Mine's are on the politics and shit. But on this one, I wanted to deflect the audience with a deflection or a personal attack on what she looks like. Some people say she's beautiful. She's fucking gorgeous right there. But that's still a deflection. At any point, the next thing that they do as Black conservatives is defend the new deflection. So now the conversation is no longer about the unjustified murder, the person running. It's no longer about any of that legislation. It's not about none of that. Now we're having a conversation around the deflection, which is, was it really lynching? Something happened in this revolt thing that I had to call out. You see the way that she looked at that black man? When I made the statement earlier that she has the problem with black male authority and standing and getting out of the way, an effeminate black man may get her buy-in. But if it's a man like T.I. and he's sitting in, no matter what he's proven, in the heart of the ghetto, as she's talking about all of these issues that affect the black community, she will cut this black man off if he's speaking. I would say she does the same to white people too, though. But the look on her face right here was fucking priceless. I thought that shit was hella funny. And she was looking at none other than Killer Mike, which is the other side of that argument. The shot from socialism and all of that shit. This shit was hella funny. Hey, the way she was looking at bro when bro started talking, if y'all haven't seen this one, y'all got to check out this one too, man. This celebritizing of politics, I think that's a wave right now. It may die out, but when they're pulling 100,000 views on shit like calling the United States Surgeon General or Uncle Tom, and they getting 100,000 on that, man, this shit looks pretty fucking popular. Go to all the C-SPANs, go to all the economists, go to John Hope Bryant. They're pulling in numbers that are like 4,000 at the most. 400 is more typical, but it's like regular standard black YouTube type numbers. They really not getting it, but these live streamed events during this pandemic, now they getting their 40, 50s. And she was getting 100 years ago. This celebrity effect shit and what that influence is, man, that's why the deflection goes out the whole window with me. Because she is not the person to be negotiating on behalf of black folks. And our social, political, and economic disadvantage is what we have to address. And as long as we keep putting the clown on the stage, then the clown is only going to keep telling jokes and saying shit to make other people laugh. At the same time, masking some real talk. Like when she said the single motherhood rate in the 1960s in Black America, before LBJ started the Great Society Act, was 23%. That's all of their talking points. Have a debate with any black conservative. You'll see whether it's Larry Elder or ABL or Candace Owens, they all use this exact point of reference as making America great again, which is why you got to go civil rights when you having these conversations in the first place. It's not just double talk, it's triple talk. The one on the right, the single motherhood rate in the black community today is 74%. And that's when she's speaking on father absence. The same person who was saying, Mom, you should have left that nigga a long time ago. Damn, bro. But I had to break the screen in half and show it double because it's still the same double talk. Because you want to go back to an era where that feminist movement hadn't galvanized and the women did not have the right. And the man was the head of the household. And there was not a motherfucker was going to tell me about what happened in my motherfucking household. Shotgun weddings until the damn son has the shotgun and your father doesn't. Or you could talk about the shotguns that your neighbors have that Ahmaud Arbery did not have. But it was hilarious. As you see here, even T.I. had to damn near close his legs and raise his hand to speak. Wow, she was talking. But she want to go back to the 60s where that shit is a no-go. Does she really want to go back to the stage where women weren't allowed? I don't really think so. That's why I call it double talk or just playing a role. And this shit finally catching up. Because, man, that Revolt Summit, man, is hip hop. It is the celebritization of politics, or the celebrity effect of it. And even now, we still don't got enough representatives that we could point to and say, damn, they did that shit. Like, it's like they ain't doing shit. It's like the other argument. Like, if we check the legislation and which bills was being pushed every day now as just a thing to do, what is the Congressional Black Caucus doing? You'd be frustrated because they ain't doing shit. You're better off going to their Twitter and seeing what they said about something than what they're actually doing. But we're going to find out who them 3 Democrats was that voted against this $3 trillion. Because when I say cut the check, bitch, I meant it. Which era was America great? Well, I know it's fire. I don't got to give myself a pat on the back for just how this presentation came out, but I think it's fire. Oh, it wasn't even Donald Trump's statement. Ronald Reagan said that. Bitch, Ronald Reagan wasn't shit either. Fuck him too. Before Lyndon B. Johnson, fuck him too. But that's the passionate me, and it throws out homonyms, and we don't need none of that. We could keep it respectable. Chaos Reign, what it do, man? My presentation is over. Let me bring in somebody else because I'll sit here and keep going hard. Somebody said, you wrong, bro, LOL. I don't know if I'm wrong, man. I just gave you the information, and I gave it to you in their own words. So that's what happened on my end. Let me mute my mic. Chaos Reign, go on and come on, introduce yourself, and then go on and build for a couple of minutes. I need some water, my guy.
Yes, Brother Moses, what's good, bro? I'm gonna let you drink some water. I have maybe a few important questions. I think I'm not sure if you're a financial analyst or you're in finance per se as a profession or degree wise. I forget sometimes. A lot of people bring out the credentials. Now that we seen that they're gonna start opening up certain states, I'm not sure all the states. I hear a lot of people complain, said that they don't want to go back to work. They're afraid of this. Hell, they even said they might, if depending on what job they do, they might have to get tested. I don't know what the arrangement is. But the biggest question asked that to those people that feel that it's too risky to open up, my biggest question asked, and maybe you can answer this better, brother, is can this country afford to stay locked down for another 3 to 5 months, much less 6? And we already have financial issues already, and we're teetering to a potential collapse, potentially. That's my one question to ask. I don't know if you can answer this question, or it might be too hard to give a overall view if this thing, let's say, had to remain closed.
That's light work. The same thing when I told you about reparations, we still have like the government still owns so much land. Like, hold on, let me show you one real quick.
Okay.
I'll give you one. And this is how I measure my answer right here. It's through the national debt clock, right? And here's the answer is yes. We actually need about 23 trillion in borrowing right now from the Federal Reserve at near 0%. But what it's doing is, in order to keep up the pay, damn, they got a new mobile app. This shit ain't been updated in 15 years. Now they got a mobile app. Ain't that about a bitch? Hey, it's been the same debt clock for 15 years. Now they done updated it with an app, and they got an app for everything. I promise you.
Oh my goodness.
But let me help you here. So, yeah. But right here, though, household assets, as you see this number, certain of these categories, they're going up. And remember, we're talking digit space. So in every second right here, as we're looking in this thing, it's moving by the hundreds of thousands. So like 1,000, 1,000. And what you want to know are our household assets going up or our household assets going down? And in this case, we are losing 1 million every 3 or 4 seconds in household assets. The U.S. total national assets, which is all of us, not just the individual households, you see that one is moving even faster. And which rate is it going? It's going down. Assets per citizen, 436,000. Now that's a good one, because African Americans have never been any nigga. If you got 436,000, then we need to be having a different conversation already. But the average African American was nowhere near assets of 436,000, not even including that grandmama's house that had been passed down. In the red line districts, our homes were sub 200. They were subpar loans, which means even using that home, and it's mostly single family houses as our asset, it wasn't 200,000. And so the difference even there in assets being lost, this ain't us being hit like this.
Yeah.
This is not us. And until they do right by us, this clock doesn't stop. Look, Social Security liability, this is the one that's going up, which is Democratic leaning. Take care of our elders. Medicare or Obamacare, this one is going up by every second. It's going up by tens of thousands, not as fast as our assets are coming down, but by every second, tens of thousands more in Democrat leaning Medicare or Obamacare. U.S. unfunded liabilities. Well, I don't even want to tell you what that number is. This is million, this is billion, $147 trillion. And what we're asking for the next 5 months would be 23 trillion. It would put this number at 170 in unfunded liabilities. But that's what we're asking for. What we also would ask for with that is that money stimulates our households to where we stop losing assets.
Okay.
When we're pro-Black, we're saying, look, we ain't even got to 436 yet. And so we need help just to get to parity, because they're saying this is where the average citizen should be. And we ain't there. So what will it take for our Black leaders to help us on average get to $436,000 per assets per citizen? I'm a married man. I got a wife. She needs 436. I got 2 kids. They need 436. If we're not thinking in the terms of the millions that African Americans should be receiving, then we're just not thinking. Now look here. Here's another primary indicator: savings per family. $15,000 in savings, nigga. They had a report that was, I wasn't calling you nigga, but they had a report that was like the average family doesn't have $400. So who are they talking about again? Whether this number goes up or down, we know that we have a conversation because we're not even here yet. So how do we get to the 15? And then finally, the median income now, $34,000. Globally, this is just less competitive. And the only way to turn up the number of median income for American households, I'm Black and pro-Black, so I argue for Black families to get this, and then savings per family. I definitely advocate for this one. I want less personal debt, less debt per household, less credit card debt, less student loan debt. That's Democratic, everything that we're saying, not race-based unless you ask me, but race is a part of that major combination. So a long question, long way of saying it. I think the answer is yes. It does become an unfunded liability of 23 more trillion dollars that they would be adding to this. I would want to do so in a way that also stops the bleeding. We're seeing millions per second in households that are just being depleted. Where are they going? To those same places like Candace Owens or the conservatives would argue against: China. So if you don't want China to keep taking over the American households, then we need to be the ones who are actually empowered and stop choosing those other groups. Anyway, this is our deadlock. We're at 25 million. It was like 21. Keep in mind that the current administration, where they came in, where was the U.S. national debt and where they're at today, and then look at the rate of increase in United States national debt comparatively between administrations. Let me see if there was one more on this one. Are we good? Yeah, I think I'll hold right there, but I'll use that as my source on giving you the information on my answer. Can we afford to stay locked down for 5 more months? I think 5 more months is easy work to stay locked down, but it is a tough decision.
Okay. Well, let me think. What else questions to ask? Damn, there's so much going on. It's like, woo. Besides the foolishness and distractions that a lot of these politicians, even with, they waiting to get some things down pat before they say, now we have the cure. Well, we all know you already had the cure. It's just you just trying to put things in paper to really force your bigger agenda, which is also concerning, but well, we shall see. because I think where I saw this, was this on a article? I'm trying to remember what it was, but there was a lot of things circling around for the net, which is always questionable, bro. And at the end of the day, I tell people just gotta do the best you can. You can avoid it, but if you can't, it is what it is. But it goes back to how we're not really organized as a people. We just wait for every travesty to hit us, and then we just react. We're hoping that somebody's going to save us, like they have the actual cure. And these days, got to be done. We have to stop with this. We can't keep living like this and hoping that when we come across these problems, that the big brother's going to come in and save. First of all, big brother saves himself first, and then he'll think about saving you second. You get me? At the end of the day. So, but you dropped down a lot of information out there, man.
That's right. And we're 4 minutes past the hour. B1 Brother Moses, man, salute Chaos Reign. I thought my brother George was going to hop on here, but he was at the supermarket. I wish he would have listened to the B1 Corona Noia where we told him to stay his ass at home, but he got his ass out there. He's already said he went and tried to get tested, and I'm not sure if he said he was positive for the COVID-19. I got to give him a call. I'm going to check out George Macon. Also salute the Midtown Pookie. That's my guy here, man. And if you're catching this in the restream, thank you. I know it's a 2-hour conversation, and that's still not even me moving into the Ahmaud Arbery. But if the highest ranking political celebrity, the one who was talking about white supremacy in the House Judiciary meeting at the hearing on white supremacy, and she's the one who's actually being called to have that call, and she's the one now talking about it, then of course I'm going to join that bandwagon and tell you about what Candace Owens is saying and doing. I'm not going to give you my personal perspective too much onto the Ahmaud Arbery. I'm going to let that one continue to build as that story grows. I don't need more information. I'll tell you my perspective in general is that I am 100% for Black men living and surviving in America.
Mm-hmm.
You could go to Africa. You could do Pan-Africanism if you want. You could be Black in another society, but I am 100% for us thriving right here where we at. And because of that, we got work to do. No excuses. You saw nothing but Black content here delivered today. So be sure that you hit that like right there. The sources that I dropped in there in the very beginning about the SBA, if you are a small business and you have not gotten that queue yet, and you're still just a little bit apprehensive, maybe you weren't filing your taxes. Maybe your business never broke even, and so you never really reported it. Maybe you're an independent contractor. Your LLC is like 5 years ago when you filed those paperwork. You haven't been keeping up with it. Man, don't let the excuses keep you out of the queue. There's no reason for me to be B1 or Black first and to know this much about economics and to have nobody in my network that I know could benefit from what I know. And so financial services as well is what I do on a daily. I can work at home, which is how I kind of keep up. But outside of that, I'm here for y'all if y'all need me, man. Y'all see where I be at, man. You find me in any of these chats or any of these spaces, be sure to say what's up. B1 Brother Moses, and I salute you. Appreciate you, Chaos Reign. That's all I got, though. So I'm out. And let me give you that music on the way out. I know y'all was waiting for that. Like, damn, he ain't even really play no lot of music this time around, man. What happened to Brother Moses? Don't let it fool you. We still got music for you. I just got to turn it up on the outro now because I don't want it to cause too much friction. That's it right there. Hey man, I be feeling this like nothing else, man. This beat right here, I think is the one. This breakdown right here gets me thinking. Look, happy Friday, y'all.